I'm Alicia Birnbaum. I'm with the Vancouver Web Festival. Today we have an amazing amount of panels, and then tonight we have our awards gala, so please stick around for that. That's at 6 o'clock. It's here in this room. There's a red carpet. There's going to be cocktails, so it's going to be a lot of fun. But that's not what we're here for right now. We are here for incorporating influencers into your digital storytelling. Does anyone know what this means? Does anyone have any idea about influencers? Somewhat? Somewhat? All right, well, we're going to learn more today. I just want to first thank our sponsor, the Bell Fund, for sponsoring this theater. So thank you so much to the Bell Fund. And I want to introduce you to our host. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Tyler Funk. He is here and he is going to be hosting today. He's the creator behind the White Ninja series and founder of North of Now, a digital production company producing branded content and broadcast commercials. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Tyler Funk. And on the panel today, we have Rachel David from #Communications, and we have Stewart Reynolds from Brittlestar, and they're going to take it away.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming out, guys. Just to do a quick poll to start us off, how many people were at the last panel? Okay, cool. And how many people are filmmakers? Awesome. And how many people work with influencers currently or are influencers? Okay, great.
Perfect. That's a good question
That's
to
some good stuff to know.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to start, but just kind of going down the line of talking about, obviously, Rachel, we didn't get a chance to explain exactly everything you do. So let's start by like what everyone does and how that relates to influencers.
Okay. So I run a company called #Communications. Simply put, we are a consultancy for brands. So the brands will come to us, and if they have anything that they need to know about influencer marketing, how do they reach out, what do they need, we are like a glorified matchmaker, as you could say. So they typically will call and say, we've got X amount of budget, we need to get the word out about this brand, say it's like a certain launch, maybe it's a Mother's Day campaign or something to do with Halloween or whatever. We end up showing them a deck. We run software on the back end, say, okay, do you want to target Canadians? Well, we're able to see how many Canadians we're able to reach and really match make exactly who the brand would match as far as an influencer. So my background is I was in broadcasting for about 10 years. I started understanding the small ecosystems within the music industry and within the television and broadcast industry and movie industry. And so then when I took a year off and I basically was like, I'm going to learn everything about digital. And that's when I started, doing my own brand deals. And I was shocked because I was like, how am I doing my own brand deals? I have like barely any subscribers. I've got like 10,000 subscribers or something, which isn't that much for doing branded content. And my first year of being, my own content producer and just putting up stuff on my YouTube channel and my Instagram, I was able to make the same salary that I did when I was in broadcasting. And I thought that was mind-blowing to me. But it dawned on me it was because of the people that I knew. So, I can go more into it on how I grew and everything and how I started meeting all these influencers and traveling, but that is what I do now. And every week, on top of now running this company, and we service brands like Best Buy and Sony and Loblaws and Google, and we've done some amazing brand campaigns. I take 5% of my time and I do a weekly podcast where I interview creators all about their revenue streams and how they make money online, because my hopes is that for anybody who is confused about that, because it is kind of the Wild West, this will allow them to think of, how much am I going to charge? And, what platform are these creators looking at to maximize on next? So, yeah.
I'm Stewart Reynolds, as you guys know from the last panel, and known online as Brittlestar. And what we've done is essentially create a whole bunch of original content and then developed an audience from that content, found out who that audience is, and then brands contact us and want to tap into that audience with whatever their service or product is or messaging is in the same kind of tone and themes that we would do normally. So.
Awesome. So I want to jump right into it, and I want to get you guys' take on, are filmmakers dead? Are we redundant? Are there influencers that will cover the stuff? Or do you see yourself as a filmmaker and an influencer, or an influencer first and then a filmmaker second?
I don't see myself as a filmmaker. I think that that's an entirely different skill set from what I do. I think as a content creator, I know how to do me really well, basically. I'm not sure I'd be able to just sort of jump into a project and do it the best way it could possibly be done. However, if I'm on screen, I know how it should look. And that just comes from years of just messing around and trying. No, I don't think filmmakers are dead by any means, by any stretch. I think especially now, I think the entry level to become a filmmaker is as low as it's ever been in history, meaning the means of production, not meaning quality. So I think that it's so important now because stories are how information is conveyed, and you need to be a good filmmaker to tell those stories properly.
Yeah, and obviously it's not dead. I think it's just changed. So when I look at filmmakers now, I think of someone like, his name is Stro. He's from Ottawa, and he's in LA now. I don't know if you know him, but he directs all of like Lele Pons and a lot of these mega influencers on Instagram, Hannah Stocking and Twan and all that, and they all collaborate together, and he's making mini films that are just 1 minute long, beautiful production value, and there is a direct revenue stream of how, they integrate branded content. It's just a different way of making films. And, as they say, our attention spans are getting a lot shorter. So I look at filmmaking as just adapting to a little bit shorter form. But then obviously there's long form as well, and there's short, it's not dead. I think it's just we've got so many different platforms to utilize to get our message out.
So Rachel, when you're looking to add people to your roster, are you looking for people who do them, like Brittlestar, that it's them, or it's someone who has a web series that the show's a great idea?
So one of the biggest misconceptions about what I do is people think that I sign talent exclusively. I don't. My benefit that I bring is that I have a super scaled network. Stewart and I have known each other for maybe 2-3 years now. When I took that year off, and what I would recommend to you is, if you're really passionate about doing something, take a step back. You know how they say that sometimes to get ahead, just like the most successful people think of it as like a cha-cha dance instead. And you take a step forward and you take a step back and you take a step forward. So I look at that time as like, it was bad. I was let go. I had just gone through a breakup, and I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I talk about this often because it was like, now when I look back at it, I go, I've heard that quote that you grow through pain, and it was in those moments where you're really raw and receptive to where the world is going and what are you doing and what am I going to do next, and so what happened was I just started making YouTube videos, and I knew, because when I was in broadcasting, I would interview all these celebrities, and be it athletes on the Raptors, or I remember I had J-Rock from the Trailer Park Boys over, and just people that I had known, and then that took me to meeting all these online YouTubers, and then they started coming, and I realized, as a distribution, like to grow, it made sense, because on YouTube, a big thing is doing collabs to grow. So I started having this kind of collab channel, and through this collab channel, probably, it must have been 8 months after I started my channel, I got a call from one of the biggest agencies in the country, and they said, hey, we're doing this Chevrolet campaign. We want to work with some of your friends. We don't know how you know them. Can you attach us to your friends? And I was like, what, you can't get a hold of them? What do you mean? Why? And they're like, well, how? Like, we DM them on Instagram. They are getting thousands of DMs. We just don't know. How do you know all these people? So then I realized, it was just about this scaled network that I had, and it was understanding, because then they said, cool, now that you've attached us, what do we do with them? I was like, you don't know what to do? Of course you don't know what to do with them. Of course they would be better doing an Instagram video, and they would be better on YouTube and this, and it just made sense, because when you knew the people, you just knew what they were good at and what their tone was. Again, we were explaining that, and then I just did one, and then another, and then now I have a company, and there's about 5 people that I work with, and all amazingly strong, confident women, and I love them, and they inspire me, and I couldn't have predicted that this cha-cha dance would have led me here.
So what's the best way for filmmakers, as we have a lot here with us, to get involved with influencers? What would you guys suggest?
I think, events like this are great. I think events like VidCon or Playlist or anything like that is fantastic. I think one of the things I've found, I used to sort of dismiss events like this and sort of think it wasn't really worth going to them. It was like, why am I'm doing everything on the internet. Why do I need to go actually see these people? But when you actually go meet these people, you realize, oh, I like you. You're horrible. I like you. And then you connect and you chat. I think that's the best part is that, it's great to learn things from the panels like these really informative ones like the one we're on right now is super
So
informative. But apart from the panels, I think the huge benefit from events like this is actually just the networking and socializing. And networking makes it sound sketchy, but it's just a case of, hi, nice to see you. Like literally seeing if you like each other. If you're doing the similar sort of field of work or complementary fields, it's great to have those people on side to message later on when you go back home and say, will you check this out or whatever. That's how connections are made, exactly as you said.
I was thinking, where did we meet?
I think we met, I want to say it was Playlist, maybe in Orlando, but I'm not sure.
Oh, could be. Yeah.
I think it was maybe you're hanging out with Matt Santoro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I'm going to jump in on that because that's my next question.
Sorry. So what was that night?
What is that list? What is that? Give us the list of your favorite places to meet people.
For me, it's Playlist, like more than
too.
VidCon, actually.
Yes.
Yeah, I love VidCon. It's a great thing. Maybe this event eventually will grow into the thing where it'll be. I'd love to have a Canadian event that I really enjoy. But Playlist is great because there's a huge amount of time that you spend with just other people in the industry, like people who are making videos, people who are in videos, and you're kind of milling around them all the time. Entirely huge demographic of people. People as old as me are in that room, right down to little kids. And it's really, really great because you get a really great idea of who these people are and connecting. So that's my favorite.
But also the good thing about Playlist, so Playlist is happening next week in Orlando, and they have a Playlist that happens in Washington, D.C. as well. I've never gone to that one. I'm guessing you've gone to.
It's not as big, but it's fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, the cool thing about Playlist is it's like a party. Like, it's really fun. And the cool thing is that there's different platforms. So you're having Viners, you're having Instagrammers, all different. Whereas, so I would say Playlist was really good, but then also Buffer Festival I found was really good for me. It was the first time I ever was exposed to. Buffer Festival I'm actually on the board of directors this year. It's a festival where the most cinematic, beautiful content creators on YouTube. It's kind of like TIFF, but for YouTubers, if this is making sense. And so there's screenings throughout the week, and then there's an awards gala at the end of the week. And then for me, that was, my first festival I ever went to, and I just was in the same room as all these people. And I remember actually Corey, the founder, told me, Rachel, I'm going to take you to this, because he was one of the first people I met when I'm going through my whole rough and tough time. And I had actually put out a video when this all happened, because people were texting my phone being like, why aren't you on my TV? Because I was a host for a show. And, how's it going with your boyfriend, all this stuff. And I just made a video and was like, this is what happened, and I don't know what's gonna happen next. And I was so sad and so lost. And I guess it just it was crazy. Like, I thought, when you just don't want to text somebody, or when like your close person to you calls you, it's like, what happened? And then you have to explain it, and it's like when you say the words, that's when you cry. I was like, I'm not saying the words anymore. So I made a video. And this video I thought would get obviously like 40 views or something like that. A few of my friends, in the first day it was like 2,500 views, and then now it has like 25,000 views. And the crazy thing about that video was when it happened, my inbox it got flooded. So it was pretty much like the engagement on that, and that's sort of what taught me now when doing influencer campaigns, look at the engagement on these videos, because when I put that video out and I had like out of 2,500 people, I got like 2,000 emails of, read this self-help book, talk to my friend, this happened to me, do you want my lawyer? I was like, who's these people? And I just started crying more.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the next thing I wanted to touch on, was how, as influencers, do you create conversation, right? How do you make it more than just one way you watch something and it's over? Because I think that's a big difference with influencers as opposed to filmmakers. Sometimes we're not thinking about a conversation.
Yeah, I think that with doing social media content, you're especially with video, really with anything, but I think specifically with video, you're creating a tool that someone can use as self-expression in their own timelines, in their own feeds, because people are communicating on social media all the time, and Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and especially the lateral sharing ones like Twitter and Facebook. If I watch a video and I think, oh my God, it's the cliche. It's like, that's so me. Or that's so dad, or that's so whatever. People can use that content as a way to express themselves. And I think that's how you really add the value to what you're doing, as opposed to just making something that's just entertaining. I did a Vine back in the day called Urologist the Movie, which was it's my favorite thing I've ever done. And I did it like a film noir style. Not even film noir, more like a Tennessee Williams Cat in a Hot Tin Roof type of thing, where I'm wearing an undershirt and I've got a glass of whiskey and I'm going, looking at wieners all day, son, that's the dream. And a voice off screen goes, Daddy, I want to be a urologist. And he's like, shut up, it's just a dream. And it was my favorite piece of content. But nobody can use that. Like, no one's going to share, oh my God, that's so me. Except for the Urologists of America, no joke. They contacted me and said, can we show this at our next convention? I was like, yes, please, thank you. But I think that's the key. You have to be self-expression. I think use it as a tool.
Well, I just did a podcast this last week. Yeah, what are we at? Okay, so last Wednesday, Thursday, I put out a new podcast, and it was with Harley Morenstein from Epic Mealtime, and we were talking about what different platforms are favoring right now. So what you'll see on YouTube, for example, is a lot of people who are, I hate this person, so I'm going to challenge them to a boxing match and then, cry while doing it, and it's just like this hyper controversial, dramatic conversations that are happening between two different channels, which they know together, if they fight, they're like, well, which side? Are you team Logan or team Jake, or whatever? And it's this really weird place right now on YouTube. And then we started talking about how on Facebook really favors heightened emotions. Oh God. And he was saying how, and I couldn't believe it, he's like, yeah, Facebook will show your stuff to a wider audience. If you just put like, I'm going live on Twitch, it's going to go out to a certain amount of people. But if you go, I am so excited for this epic, like life-changing stream that I'm going to put on Twitch, is going to get, and yes, because the title is more captivating, but anything where you go, I'm angry, I'm sad, it's going to go out to a higher percentage of your audience, just because Facebook and apparently their algorithm, they pick up on those words. I mean, you probably see now how it's like on Facebook, you could pick your emotion, that kind of thing. But when he was talking about that, and then I tried it, and it worked.
And yeah, that's something I feel like all of us filmmakers are always wondering of, like, how to know what platform even to release on, or what new platform, and like, how do you guys stay on top of the, like, I find every platform there's some that you're like, are they gonna be around in 6 months? There's Vine, and
yeah, well, as someone who had over 1.2 million followers on Vine, which is now gone, and again, I'm not bitter. My blood pressure is totally low right now. I think that you have to be aware of the fact that social media is in flux. It's just always going to be in flux because we're still super early days. You think back to, Facebook really only becoming public sort of in the mid to late 2000s, and it's not that long ago. And it's like it's everywhere. Same with YouTube. And you look at things like Vine that sort of flared up and was absolutely everywhere and then just literally got shut down. It was gone. So I think as far as creating content, it's so, again, the means of production are the lowest cost they've been. The means of distribution are the easiest they've been in history. And I think you have to just try things and sort of see where your audience is. For example, Instagram for me is not where my audience is. I can put videos on Instagram that no one will look at. And if I put them on Facebook or I put them on Twitter, they'll do really well.
I personally am a huge believer in pillar content. Who's heard about pillar content before, or that strategy? No. Okay, so simple. You make one video. Every week I record a podcast. Okay, I technically do this podcast because now it's killing two birds with one stone, because obviously I have to go and sit down, say, with Stewart and go, hey, Stewart, so what's your favorite, what's a brand you'd like to collaborate with? Or
again, I drive a 2009 Ford Flex, and I would, oh, sorry.
Or, how do you diversify, your income, and how do you do this as your job, essentially? But then it gives me a lot of insight. It gets me to understand little things about the creator, like, were they on time? Did they let me know if they couldn't make it? Are they responsible? Are they reliable? There's all these things that when it goes into doing a brand campaign that are like the subliminal things. So you get to really, really gauge that when you have a shoot to do. And then you get to even see how they are around camera equipment. It's awesome. So that's why I do the podcast, even though it doesn't do incredibly well because it's so niche. I mean, I guess niche is good, but it's something I just started. So people go, well, why do you do it? You don't get tons of views. Why do you do it? Well, I go, well, A, it kills two birds with one stone. I love doing it. I genuinely love it. And if I, as a person running an influencer marketing campaign or influencer company, have a brand come to me and say, well, who do you know? I'm like, well, I remember I got tagged in a post on LinkedIn months ago, and this is sort of what sparked it. And all these marketing agencies got tagged. And the question was, with all these new influencer marketing companies popping up, what sets an influencer marketing company apart? And the response from almost everybody was relationship. So my whole thing was, if it is relationship, then you should show your relationship, and it should stem down from the CEO down. I care, I enjoy, and I love making content. And when I was in my rough time, I was able to make it my full-time job because I had the right connections. So I feel really lucky that I get to do that. Regardless, going back to pillar content, I filmed this podcast. It's 1 hour long. That goes on YouTube. Then I have, out of that, I have one clip that we'll get out, that we'll take out, that is there's two 1 minute clips. One that's educational, and then one that every time I do a podcast, I also put them on a lie detector buzzer thing, so I verify things on it. So we take the highlights of that. Do you think you should have more subscribers than you have? Do you think, Logan Paul is hot? Do you, whatever it is, and then we just go bam, 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 and then, a big climax at the end. That's shareable, funny, snackable content, right? So that can go on Instagram. Then I have my editor, and I've told them, to put it into formatting it for an Instagram story. So whenever I have a new episode that goes out, I go, guys, I have this. Here, check out this clip. Swipe up to watch the full video. And then I also took that audio and I put it on iTunes. So it's on iTunes as well. And then, the videos, there's usually a picture that we took that day that'll go on Twitter. There's so much that comes out of that pillar. So you go, all I did was film and record 1 hour. That lent itself to my Facebook content, to my Instagram content, to my Twitter content, and then the little subsidiaries of your Instagram stories, and some of your Facebook, you could put it on your personal Facebook page as well. So it's just kind of going, what is the main thing? And also you'd maybe want to think of, if it is a business that you are running, what kind of content do you want to make around that? And I think going back to what Stewart said, if you can make it relatable, that is key. There's so many creators I've interviewed, and I don't really follow that rule because, again, I've always been compared to she's like an indie artist. She just makes what she wants. But every time, and I've experimented, when you make a relatable piece of content, say it's in your filmmaking, it's just more likely for people to be able to identify themselves in it and want to share it. And that's what you want at the end.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit more, because I think the majority of people here are kind of making web series at 8, 10 episodes. You produce a run, you get it out there. What can we learn from influencers to maybe sustain a fan base, so it's not just a release cycle of once a week for 8 weeks and then they're gone and you're starting again for season 2? Mm-hmm. What about the process would you encourage others to do?
I think it goes back to that idea of people, every piece of content has a purpose, whether it be a feature length or whether it be a series or whether it be whatever. It's got to have its value comes in the purpose, and that purpose can be It doesn't have to be, informative. It doesn't have to be self-expression specifically, because that's more of a social media thing. But it does have to offer escapism, or it has to offer something. So I think that's one of the things from an influencer's perspective would be that, okay, I'm making this piece of content. Why am I making this piece of content? What's the point here? And it's not enough to just be, well, it's a good story. Okay, well, what do you mean it's a good story? Is it offering escapism for people? Is it offering an insight into something they should know about? That type of thing. I think that kind of should guide decisions in what you're doing. And it's not, it's easy enough to say it. It's another thing to do it. But I think that's the key, is that every single piece of content, doesn't matter what it is, music, video, book, the successful stuff is being used by people for a purpose.
I get asked on a little bit of a different way of working with filmmakers. So, for example, we did a project with the National Film Board, and they wanted to have social influencers, YouTubers, but it was a historical piece all about the Constitution and when it was formed, and they just really wanted to have it brought into modern day, into an interactive series that young people were going to be engaged into watching, and they wanted the teachers to be able to show this piece of content in schools. So I think that there's a different way to reach an audience through utilizing influencers. Even now, I'm in talks with doing I can't say too much because I signed an NDA, but doing something that involves broadcast. I'll tell you after. Actually, I do need to talk to you after. And it involves broadcast, and it's all cross-platform. And I think you really need to look at your cross-platform strategy with everything you do. I get a lot of calls from filmmakers being like, hey, is there anybody that you would think would be really good to make a cameo in this film that I'm making? Or, maybe wants to just do this for fun and expand, their presence online, or maybe their acting chops or whatever it is. I think there's a lot of filmmakers that are scared to go to influencers to be in a film because they're like, oh gosh, they could do one thing well and that's them, but could they act? Or, so I think finding, and that's sort of where my company has come in, is helping identify and find these creators that are perfect for what it is that they want to do.
So Rachel, at what budget range would someone making a web series come to you? Is it a big brand? Is it in the 10,000, 100,000, $500,000? Like, at what range would it be like, hey, we want to add some influencers? When does it make sense to approach you guys?
That's kind of a different deal structure because that's almost like a casting fee. I would say, like with National Film Board, it was, hey, we've got X amount of money, can you cast them for us? And then they had a totally separate budget that they gave to the creators, and there was like 5 of them, so they ranged from like getting $2,500 to, I believe the highest was around $10,000, around there. When we do brand campaigns, however, it's typically, I would say on the lowest end would be around the 35,000 mark, and on the highest is in the 6 figures. But that also, it's not like all that's going to the company. It has to be distributed, like we were saying in the last panel. Like, some creators demand around $20,000 for a video, and that's not absurd, because these creators are really good, again, filmmakers. Like, they are putting in the time and the lighting, and they have amazing cameras, and they're doing something unique and sensational. And so they're essentially, the brands are paying for, $50,000 for like 3 to 5 commercials, essentially, but done in a really awesome, unique way.
Totally. So for White Ninja, we had a bunch of different influencers that worked on it. Stewart was one of them. We had some influencers who wanted $25,000 to revine. Like, we were producing it, everything, just to put on their channel for 24 hours.
I offered $20,000 to revine, and you wouldn't take it. It was a discount. If you were saving $5,000 to revine, you didn't take it.
And there's a case to be made. Like, these guys.
For 24 hours.
For 24 hours.
And all they'd have to do is just click rewind.
Click once.
And how many followers did they have?
14 million. I'm going to narrow it down to who it is, but.
And it was 25,000?
25,000.
That's a lot for a Revine to be taken down.
You know, and that was our thing as creators. We're like, we can't afford that.
No.
You know, like we can't create a series and get influencers on board when our budget's $150,000. You know, like that's too much for 24 hours. It would, however, be an amazing marketing spend and push, but how many followers would we get? You know, like what would we actually get out of it? And so we deployed a different strategy where we spent the 25,000 across seven or eight different guys and measured it out. But what I wanted to get to is like, how do you know the value of influencers? We know where we've had certain places send us influencers on our series that have like 500 followers and they want thousands of dollars. And we're still like confused why, you know, when I have more followers than them, why am I paying you? And they're really funny content creators, but I'm not sure if it's going to help my show or not. Like, what can we learn as filmmakers on how to judge an influencer? What value they might bring to our projects?
Do you want to start? I can go and take that.
You can start.
Okay. So the biggest thing I've been thinking about, because I get this question a lot, what sets you apart? And, you know, like I said in that LinkedIn post, there are so many of these companies popping up. And when I really took it back, I was like, it's this thing called perspective, that when you go, and I feel like I am running nonstop for about 2.5 years. And it is, all right, I go here, then I was just speaking at VidTalks, we go now to here, then I go to Orlando for playlist, then I go to ClamorCon, then I go to Buffer Festival LA, and it's just, you go into these rooms, you look, you see who's hanging out with who, you know, who is in the room that has the most clout, like you just can, there's this, it's a constant battle of art and science, and that is how I can put it together. Now, the great thing about coming to these conferences as an influencer is I get to meet these people, and even if it takes like, it's a 5-minute exchange, there's a lot that you can learn about a person, how they look in your eye, how they shake your hand, their body language, you know, do they give you their card, like how, you know, you just kind of know. And I think that when, like I said, these brands are calling me, I have to mitigate that risk. I have to take that on, and there's a lot of variables to weigh. You know, are they going to? First, we have to figure out the strategy of: do you want to grow your Instagram? Is this like are you trying to get conversions and sales? Like, what are you trying to do first? Is this just an awareness play? And then I have to look at who would work for that. So when you're looking at conversions, I'm looking a lot more into the granular engagement rates. If it's just awareness, then obviously you're looking at the views and the reach. So there's a lot of things to measure, but then on top of all of that, and we talked about this in the last panel as well, is tone and do they match? You know, there's a very different influencer that I would book for Nike than Adidas. So I think at the end of the day, it's perspective and having somebody on board. Either if you were to do it yourself, I mean, I think the hard thing is like, you might save money actually if you find just an influencer that you can reach out to and you're like, oh yeah, sure, and you have that relationship. But if you want it to be down to like a science and you know, I think that's where we come in. And we work with typically like a lot bigger brands, and it's more boutique. And I think about this all the time, and I'm like, how am I going to scale? You know, because it makes it a lot harder. But I think that's, you know, someone once said, well, do you want a Honda or do you want a Ferrari? And when he said that, it just sort of like, okay, well, maybe I don't need to be the biggest, but I need to be very, very good. So yeah, perspective is what I bring. But as far as if you were to reach out, I mean, going through Instagram, DMing, finding one, if you have a friend that's verified, ask them to reach out to an influencer for you. Because, for example, on Twitter, if they reach out, like when I got verified on Twitter, the smartest thing I did was I built a brand before I started this company, because now when I DM people or I follow somebody, they get a notification straight to their phone that I'm reaching out. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that, you know, for filmmakers working with influencers, working with anybody is a liability, right? So you have to go in, it could be a liability. You have to go in with your eyes wide open and you're looking obviously at their numbers. What can they bring in a quantitative sense to the project? But then beyond that, it's like, okay, does this even make sense? So let's say they've got like 14 million followers and you want them to share the content. You're like, do the people who follow that person really want to watch that content though? Is that really going to be worth it to them? Or are they going to look at this and go, this is out of place, scroll. So I think from the perspective of filmmakers, it's that liability aspect. Are they actually going to show up on time? Are they actually going to deliver? Are they invested in the project? And also, does it fit the tone and theme of who they are as brands themselves? And as Rachel said, you if you really want to dig deep, you really need to kind of go to someone who really just does that to really give you those real metrics and analytics that you need to sort of decide if you can't really figure it out.
Awesome. So this one's for Stewart. I'm obviously always so amazed how much content you produce. I think as myself and a lot of the other filmmakers here, probably we feel like we got to get ready, we got to get our team, we got to think it out, and you're nonstop. Like when we were shooting Fast Health, you were shooting other side stuff during it constantly. Like you're on set making like multiple pieces of content. And I was amazed because I was like, you just live and breathe it, where it's so different from the traditional world of like an actor shows up, they do their part, they leave, they maybe tweet about it. But it's just like seems like such a constant part of your life. And I'm curious to know how you get the energy, how you keep up, what inspires you, the process, everything.
Well, if any people who don't know, I was in the hospital on Thursday here, so obviously it doesn't keep up. It doesn't hold up for very long. It can go for so long. I mean, there's so many different types of content, though, right? It goes back to the means of production. We're filming Fast Health, which is a beautiful-looking series with a crew of professionals who are doing it, compared to me making something on my phone. So they both have not equal value necessarily, but they have equal value in the eyes of the viewer necessarily. Someone who might love Fast Health might love the video. I made 4 videos this morning on my walk.
What?
Just like little short pieces of content. But I mean, those are just silly, fun things. I think the hardest part creatively for that is to kind of get past that notion of, I don't know if it's good enough. I don't know if it's good enough. And usually if it makes you chuckle or makes you react in some way when you think of the idea, it's usually good enough. It might not necessarily be relatable or have a widespread appeal, but there's usually something there. If you're forcing something, it doesn't necessarily work. But if you're just kind of at the ready and you're filming stuff, I mean, I would suggest that to anybody who's a filmmaker to be like messing around on Instagram stories or whatever, just creating content just for fun, because then you kind of sprout these ideas, and you might find, doing one of these short pieces of content that's 10 seconds long, you might go, well, that's a good idea. We should develop that further. Let's create something bigger out of that. Mm-hmm. It's like a sketch pad, basically.
And Rachel, can you talk a little bit about how does it work with, working with so many different influencers, but also being worried about them representing your brand and them not going to have something come out that might damage a relationship with a brand? Like, how do you stay on top of that?
I mean, that goes down to your leverage with a person. So I don't know. I think that when you come at it from an approach where you look at them and you're like, these are people that you like hanging out with anyways. So for me, I take them out to dinner, I get them into clubs, I might take them to a Raptors game, whatever it is. And you build that trust and that relationship. And, just being even nice to a person or sitting down when you're going and you're at a conference, go and spend half an hour with this person, or maybe go for coffee or whatever it is. I think it's kind of twofold. I think that in one hand, being I would consider myself a creator because I create every week. And so when I'm speaking to somebody and say something's going wrong or, something's really off-brand, I feel really comfortable talking to them about it because I know them. And I think that's another reason why these brands are calling me, because they're like, yeah, we don't want to have to tell this guy. And I remember I've been nervous a couple times. There's some intimidating creators. And you have to think about where these creators are in their lives. It's the craziest thing because they're not like actors who have agents and managers. They sometimes pop off overnight and you're like, they've never done a brand deal before. And they don't even know, I have seen it all. Like, you're like speaking 2 different languages sometimes. But if you really go down to like, at the end of the day, I might be really, really, really tough with you. And I'm going to say, I don't like it, I don't like it, I don't like it. But I have to say I don't like it for the brand. And they're going to be more okay with me saying that if we're friends, honestly.
We're going to open up for questions in a sec. But before that, I was wondering if you guys could each touch upon what you think all of us as filmmakers need to do better on social media to get better followings. What's the one sentence piece of advice you wish someone had given you maybe 5 years ago, 3 years ago?
I'm going to go back to the same thing. Create things that people can use as self-expression. If you can create something that's impactful to you in a way, and something that kind of describes you, then it usually is going to be able to describe someone else.
What I would say is you all have an amazing talent, which is making things that look awesome. Like you probably know how to use a DSLR camera better than me. You probably know a few more skills than I do. Now, one creator I just booked makes the most incredible Instagram stories. His Instagram pictures are like whatever, they're nice, they're shot on a nice camera, but the fact that he paid attention to a thing that everybody sort of just, they use their phone, but instead he would go and film the Instagram stories on a DSLR camera, and he would create like crazy jump cuts, and it would be a film on the platform of Instagram stories. And I'm sure you could do that on Snapchat as well, but I was like, whoa, so here's an area that's kind of like, everyone's used to seeing one thing. Where can you use your skills and deploy that on something that would surprise people?
Awesome. And yeah, questions?
I like the hustle on the microphone person.
Thank you. That was good. Hi, my name is Michael. I agree. I love your statement about production value, but I also love authenticity. And so, like, where does that fit in terms of what you look for? Because if you can have some content that's too polished, it can kind of turn you off sometimes.
Totally. I mean more that I'm expecting film, I'm assuming, and maybe I shouldn't because that makes an ass out of you and me, but I was assuming, with a filmmaker, you're focused on production. And but obviously at the core of it, people listen when you're being authentic and when you're just talking in your normal voice. So I think that has to be at the root of everything that you do. Even with this guy, he has this amazing production, but a lot of people are authentic, so that's why I'm like, is there another thing that you could do utilizing, if this room is very talented at production, that would give you that upper hand that I've seen lately? Because this guy who does that is super authentic when he talks. It's like, hey guys, this is my daughter, and oh my God, I'm on my boosted board. It's just he added that extra little thing that made me go, ooh, okay. But at the core, he's, authentic, and I want to watch him.
Thank you.
Yeah, just adding on, we just did a pitch on an NDA for a company, so I can't say which company, but it was literally they wanted an ownable, authentic piece of content for Instagram.
Oh.
Yeah.
Ownable,
So a
authentic.
structure they could own to
Right.
reinvent a category that would be distinctly theirs, but it was sort of like a rebrand, but it's like a massive company. So it's really interesting about what is your own style and like what can you bring to that.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just jump with some more questions if no one else has any right now. What are you guys' favorite platforms right now? What platforms should filmmakers be looking at to be getting on, putting their series out on?
In the US, Facebook's doing a huge push with Facebook Watch. Facebook is very interested in changing people's minds currently, so and not in sort of a subliminal message way anymore. So I think that's, as cheesy as it sounds and as mom and pop as it sounds, I think that they are going to be a considerable player for the lowest bar of entry to get in to create content, for sure.
I agree.
Aw.
So release web series on Facebook.
I would try it. Yeah, why not? Why not? I think that's the thing, is that, we have this, it's easy to take for granted the fact that you can release something on a platform and then in like 3 months go, that was a stupid idea. Nobody watched it. Gone. Nobody watched it. It never happened. Let's start again and go from there.
I think the cool thing about Facebook is it has that share button. So no matter what, you don't have to actually structure a collab on YouTube with somebody. All you have to do is be like, hey, you can reach out to a friend and just be like, do you mind sharing it? And it's like not a whole lot on the other person's part.
That's the huge benefit for Facebook and for Twitter, is lateral sharing, so that if I like something and if I want Ty and I want Rachel to see it, I can share it on my timeline, and because they follow me, they go, oh, cool, it's here, that's awesome. I think that's a hugely powerful thing.
Yeah, Facebook's amazing with the share tool. That's what I loved about Vine, was the share, how you can get that around. YouTube, let's talk about YouTube, because I think so many series still go to YouTube. It seems to be the place where most stuff's coming out for web series, but it's very hard. It's it's an ocean. I've talked to a lot of people this weekend about like, how do I get people to watch my show? From an influencer perspective, what would you guys say?
I find YouTube is my least strong. Is that a thing? Is that a word? Is that how you say it? Least strong platform, and the reason I think is because it's the content I'm making isn't being seen because it's not really searchable content. YouTube is essentially just a search engine, and it's kind of like it's got so many amazing things and so much amazing content, but you have to start somewhere. You have to go to YouTube with like, I know what I'm buying. It's like going to a huge department store and saying, well, at least I'm going to walk in and I'm going to decide that either something in front of me, I'm going to look at this and possibly buy it, or I got to know I have to go back to the shoe section or something. So YouTube is super difficult to me, and they've been lovely to me. They've been so nice to me. I went to a ridiculous YouTube workshop at the YouTube LA space with Jake Paul, which is bizarre to me, because it was like Jake Paul, if you don't know, is like a YouTuber, and he's a slightly controversial YouTuber, I guess, now. But he's like 22 or something. Probably younger, he's like super young. Yeah. He got this 2 million plaque, and I was like, oh, I can't wait to hit 5,000. That'll be great. But it's an amazing archive of destination viewing is what I would call YouTube. It's just really hard.
I think the hard thing as a filmmaker to really cut through, and exactly like you said, that search engine. So like, what if you're like, the tales of a bumblebee in the woods, you know? And it might be the great piece of content. Who is searching for that? So unless your short film is like, how to remove nail polish or whatever, like
50 ways to make slime at home or something. Yeah.
So how are you going to get it searched? And I think that is, it's funny because as soon as I changed my content from challenges that were popular to like this kind of businessy stuff, it completely like, but again, I don't care because it's actually helping some people, but I'm like, how do you, there's a whole thing actually at, I'm going to be releasing a podcast with this woman named Sunny Lenarduzzi. I don't know if you know her. She's local here. And she really teaches people how to grow on YouTube, and she really looks into the search engine and the certain keywords and what will help you stand out based off of how many people have posted videos in that pool. So it's like taking it down to a science, but unfortunately people don't think about that when they're putting out videos. They're just like, oh, cool. This is my cat, you know, but how important the tagging and the metadata really is. And I think that's what really crushes a lot of content, good content, from being seen. And it's really discouraging for me to see that, because I've been seeing more and more content creators that I love not necessarily get the attention they need. And now the things that is just essentially these loops of controversy and drama of people being like, you know, Jake Paul's diss track, and then someone doing a diss track to that, and then it getting picked up because that got so much attention because it was so controversial. So then as soon as somebody else uses their name or responds, they're instantly going to get more views, and then you know, YouTube's algorithm or whatever will put that at the top. And it's a tough place. They say that YouTube favors longer. They want to be the next TV. So what does that do to people? It makes it so content creators are having to pump out content every day. I've seen a lot of people who are vloggers, and they were really popular vloggers because they posted like a 10-minute video every single day. And then they're like, you know what? I'm getting burnt out. I'm tired. I just want to make an awesome piece of film. And then they do that, but they took some time off, like they took maybe 2 months off, and then they post this epic thing that they've been working on for a couple months, and it just gets a third of the views, and then they feel bad about themselves. They're like, well, maybe I should just go back to that. But so I think it's a really tough platform to tango with.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, exactly. YouTube essentially is just television now, and that you can put something on television, and that's wonderful. But you have to drive people to your content. It's there. It's an amazing vehicle to get your content into onto the eyeballs of billions of people. But it's not enough just to put it there. It's just you have to still get them to go there.
Exactly.
Okay, so people should be getting into the controversy if they want to YouTube's.
That just YouTube drama all the time. Yeah.
Start a fight with somebody.
You won't believe what Rachel David said about Tyler Funk. Yeah.
Are there any short form platforms? You know, we're seeing so many. Seed and Spark, Sika. There's so many different platforms being launched all the time. Are you guys seeing any that you're really excited about that you think, if you got a series that's unreleased, get it there. Get it on Vimeo Plus or Amazon Prime. What is that place where are people monetizing on any of these platforms that you're seeing well?
Probably Facebook Watch. I was gonna
Facebook
say.
Watch is the first that comes to mind for sure. I mean, Amazon's video distribution on demand thing that they do. I have one video on there, and I've made, I think, close to $2, so that's pretty great. So again, I think that those if you want to sort of capitalize on this social exchange, you really need to be on a platform like Facebook that people can share laterally. That's that your marketing is discounted that way.
It's crazy though that people are really starting to make money on Facebook. Like every time I like to ask these creators like, well, how much money are you making? Or are you making more than X amount? And because I want hard numbers, I want to know. And one guy said, like, because I was like, oh, you made a couple dollars? What was it? And he's like, no, I put out a video yesterday. I got over $50 on it. And it's not even that it got tons and tons of views. It's just, and again, with Harley last week, he said how, Harley has 7 million subscribers on Epic Mealtime and then like about 800,000 on his vlog channel. And he's like, I make more money on Facebook now. What? You what? And he goes, and that's a monstrous change for him. So, yeah, I would definitely think and learn more about Facebook.
Just when you thought it was easy to hate Facebook, you're like, yeah, I want to really hate, oh crap, they're the only place to go to.
This might be relevant for smaller filmmakers. What kind of following do you think you need to make a living as a filmmaker on digital platforms in this day and age?
Like number-wise, you mean?
Yeah, or like if you're looking for a series to be self-sustaining, like what where to bring the brands. I mean, like obviously there's so many different variables, so I think it just big to ballpark it, even so people have a goal in their marketing stuff. Like, how do I get to 1 million followers? Or like, how do I get to 500,000 or 100,000? Or
on which platform?
I think again, predominantly YouTube is what I'm seeing most series being released at from creators here. So I think that's a good place to start. But I think everyone here would be open to finding where else they might be able to make money off their content.
I think it really depends on what is the right number for the niche that you're targeting. If there's a new friend of mine who does cross stitching of like strong female characters, which is just a weird thing, but he's like exploded in that space because no one was aware of it before, and he's probably got like less than 10,000, and he's actually getting deals out of this stuff now, which is just bizarre to me. But I think it's great. So it depends on the industry and the market and what's a lot for that. If it's for cars, then you're in the millions, that type of thing.
Yeah, that's so true. Because the more niche that you are, like, I could offer a brand, they'd be like, cool, for 50,000, how many impressions? And be like, oh, 500,000 impressions or something. But if it's something so niche, it's going to be a totally different price because that say it is an old car, niche, and it's all vintage old cars. Well, they're going to be able to charge a lot more. I've been on a deal where somebody was like in that niche, and they were getting paid a lot of money because he was the only one, he was the best, and he was specialized, and he was an expert. So if I were to give you numbers, I'd be like, it looks good once you hit above 10,000. Let's just say that. Because I feel like 10,000 is that mark, like even on Instagram where you could do the swipe up. And so you can immediately send people to a brand's website. I think 10,000 is just a good mark.
It kind of demonstrates that you're consistent.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, we'll do one last question. We'll wrap it up if there's another ones. How much content do you think producers should aim to put out? We talked about the pillar strategy, but like, is there a number for that in a period of time, or is it just you're selling yourself as a brand and if this is your show, you want to keep it going as long as you can, or a season model like we see on TV?
I mean, and actually my grandma's right here sitting in the audience, and she just was like, every time, she goes, why didn't you post? What's going on? And she goes, every time you post, you're just telling people, hey, I'm here. So I think she made it a good point. So all of a sudden I started posting every day on Instagram and posting on YouTube, and I was just like, it's just saying that you're here. Even in the podcast, I just go, by the way, I do this with part of my time, but otherwise I run this company, #communications. You can check it out in the description below. That's a quick little call to action for me to just tell people, hey, I don't know who's watching. So I think you put it out as much as you want, and that's for anyone, despite like filmmaking, your own personal brand, you've got a business, whatever it is. It's just letting people know that you're there. Every time Stewart posts, I go, oh yeah, I want to,
right, he's not
he would be
dead yet.
good for this. You
It's
know what I
amazing.
mean? Like it just keeps, it puts you in front of people.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to quantify it. I would say at least once a day, like post something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then maybe have longer timelines for bigger projects. But I think if you go offline for a month, people think you're dead.
That's intense
yeah.
though, for every day.
But it doesn't have to be. It could be a text post. It could be a picture. It could be an Instagram story of like exactly what you said.
Okay.
Hey, look, my grandma came to see me. That type
Okay,
of thing.
yeah.
That
Okay.
type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's the post.
there you go.
Awesome. We'll wrap it up. Let's give a nice round of applause to our lovely guests and sharing all the insights.
Thank you.